Task failed. I was erased by the system. Before the wedding, the male lead finally remembered I existed and came to the villa to see me. Has Lillian realized her mistake? The butler's face was full of sorrow. Miss, she has already passed away. He couldn't believe it. He rushed into the bedroom, only to see my body, already cold. Chapter 1. Before the system officially declared my mission a failure, I refused to give up and sent Horace one last text. Do you really have to marry Patricia? He replied almost immediately. If you dare to keep causing trouble, we can't even be siblings anymore. I didn't have to guess to know that as he typed. Horace's brows were furrowed in impatience. With despair in my heart, I set my phone aside and waited for death. I watched the countdown above my head. From 10, all the way down to 0. The system's mechanical voice rang in my mind. Mission to pursue the male lead has failed. The host will now be terminated. With that, I felt my soul being torn bit by bit from this body. The pain was unbearable. 100, 1,000 times worse than when I was once whipped and tortured. I gritted my teeth. But still, a muffled groan of pain leaked out from between my lips. Memories of this life played before my eyes like a slideshow. I am the vicious supporting female character in a CEO romance novel. Yet I was given the script of pursuing the male lead. To strengthen our bond, I chose to become his childhood sweetheart. For the first 18 years, we were inseparable, deeply attached to each other. When I had my period, Horace would buy me pads and make me brown sugar tea. He would take a day and night flight all the way from abroad just to tell me, I wanted to see you. Almost everyone believed we were destined to be together, including me, until the appearance of the female lead, Patricia. Only then did I truly understand that a childhood bond could still lose to a sudden arrival. On my 20th birthday, I confessed to him. It was no surprise that he turned me down. He summed up our decade-plus relationship in one sentence. Lillian, I only see you as a younger sister. From that moment on, my role as the vicious supporting female character awakened, and I began to cling to him relentlessly. I also witnessed, as an observer, the 5 years of ups and downs between him and Patricia, leading at last to their happy ending. If I didn't pursue Horace, I would die, and besides, I truly loved him. Back then, I refused to believe that 18 years of closeness could be overshadowed by a single fleeting moment. Reality proved me terribly, absurdly wrong. But Horace, it really hurts. Chapter 2. After the immense feeling of being torn apart subsided, my body began to feel light, no longer confined to mere flesh and blood. Strangely, I didn't disappear immediately. It seemed that I had become a spirit, drawn by some mysterious force to Horace's company. Dressed in a black suit, he exuded an air of elite professionalism. Honestly, it was rather ironic. That suit he was wearing was tailor-made by me. Back in college, I studied fashion design, and my heart was filled with thoughts of Horace. I once said naively, every year on your birthday, I'll gift you a custom suit and let you be my brand spokesperson. At the time, he also promised to invest in me so my brand could go global. I kept my promise. He broke his. President, Patricia called to ask if you'd go take your wedding photos. Justin, Horace's assistant, informed him. I see. Horace replied. He flipped a photograph face down on the desk and stood up in silence. As he left, I was forced to follow. I watched him and Patricia laugh and smile as they finished an entire set of wedding photos. On the way back, for once, Horace did not take Patricia home. The air in the car was inexplicably heavy, so oppressive it was hard to breathe. Horace frowned, lost in thought, clearly troubled by something. After a while, he spoke abruptly. Where is Lillian's song? What's she doing today? Ordinarily, I was like a clingy shadow, calling him countless times a day, texting him incessantly. Even if he ignored me, I would find a way to get his schedule from Justin. But this time, Justin's response was calm. Miss Song hasn't contacted me at all today. At those words, Horace's brows furrowed deeply. He picked up his phone. Our chat history was still stuck on yesterday's page. Me, do you really have to marry Patricia? Horace, if you dare to keep making a scene, we won't even be siblings anymore. He frowned, as though granting me a small favor, and sent a message. Where are you? Normally, I would have replied in seconds, brimming with excitement, eager not to make him wait. But this time, 10 minutes went by without any answer. Finally sensing that something was off, Horace instructed Justin, "Head to Rose Garden." Rose Garden. This villa was a coming-of-age gift from Horace to me. I've lived here ever since, refusing to move out. Even the butler was hired by him to look after me. When Horace arrived, the villa was eerily quiet. Only the butler remained in the living room, drifting aimlessly about his duties. Horace casually adjusted his cufflinks and told the butler, "Tell Lillian to come down and see me." Hearing my name, the butler's vacant expression cracked, revealing a sorrow that was hard to decipher. He cast a resentful glance at Horace and slowly uttered, "Miss, she has already passed away." Horace froze. Then his face turned cold as he let out a soft, mocking laugh. What new trick is she playing now? Although I was willful and unruly, I would never joke about life and death. Yet his trust in me was so weak that he didn't even bother to verify the truth. Convinced I was throwing a tantrum, Horace told the butler before leaving, "Let her know not to show up at my wedding. Patricia doesn't like her. And frankly, I find her an eyesore." The butler's eyes flickered. The look he gave Horace carried both pity and a hint of anger. Chapter 3. Horace stayed in my villa for less than 10 minutes. He came in a hurry and left just as quickly. He got into the car looking irritated. Justin, noticing no one followed behind him, was taken aback. "President, did Miss Song not come out to see you?" After all, in the past, I wouldn't have let him wait even a single second, setting aside the whole mission aspect. It turns out I was nothing more than a shameless simp clinging to him. "Lillian, you really didn't die an unjust death." Horace's expression darkened, his annoyance growing. He warned, "From now on, don't ever mention that name in front of me." Justin wanted to say something but stopped himself. Seeing Horace's clear impatience, he swallowed all his words of caution. I was sitting right there in the back seat, beside Horace. He seemed overwhelmed, so he drove around the entire city for quite a while. His thin lips pressed together in a straight line. He gripped his phone tightly, glancing at it every so often, but it remained dark and silent. I wasn't sure what he was hoping for. Was he expecting me to call or text him again? Oh, right. I remembered, Horace once said that I was his stabilizing force. He could only feel at ease where I was. There was a time he got into a quarrel with Patricia, came to me drunk in the middle of the night, and lost control. He held me tightly. His warm, alcohol-laced breath brushed against my neck. He nuzzled me intimately and said, "Lily, what would I ever do without you?" His tone was filled with longing, as though I were the person he'd yearned for all his life. That was the closest I ever got to succeeding in my pursuit of him. If I had slept with him then, given Horace's conservative nature, he wouldn't have turned his back on me. But I didn't want to use such disgraceful tactics to keep him at my side. I wanted to stand before him proudly, so I always showed up during his bleakest moments. The times he hit rock bottom, I'd seen him beaten down and humiliated countless times, yet could never share his triumphs when he was riding high. During those 5 years of tangled emotions with Patricia, they fell in and out of love. Every time Horace achieved something, he would run childishly to her, lift his chin in pride, and taunt her. "Patricia, you've lost to me again." Patricia would go red-eyed with anger. Horace would then scramble to apologize, doing his best to make amends, and I would stand at a distance, staring blankly at the piercing sight before me. For 5 whole years, I lost count of how many times I witnessed scenes like that. I thought about giving up, but whenever that idea crossed my mind, the system would shriek in my head with threats of termination. Dawn broke. The distant, misty blue horizon slowly turned pale with the first light of day, and the sun struggled into view. Horace waited for me all night, but in the end, no surrender came from me. He closed his eyes for a moment and said coldly, "Take me to the office." "Yes, President." Upon arriving at the company, Horace paced restlessly around his office. He shifted his gaze, and suddenly it fell upon the photograph lying face down on his desk. In all the rush yesterday, I never got to see who was in that photo. Was it Patricia? These days, the two of them had been inseparable. Did he miss her so much that he needed to look at that picture for comfort? But over these 5 years, while Horace and Patricia were locked in their love-hate relationship. I was the one who stayed by his side constantly. Back before my 20th birthday, Patricia came to me and said confidently, "Lillian, in the end, I'll be the one who ends up with Horace." I froze, not taking her challenge to heart. How could that be? Horace and I had a deep bond. He single-handedly planned my extravagant birthday party, so we made a bet. At my birthday celebration, I confessed to Horace, "I like you." The entire crowd went wild, applauding and urging, "Get together! Get together!" I waited, full of hope and nerves, for his response, but after a moment of hesitation, Horace glanced into the crowd, sighed slightly, and said, "Lillian, I only see you as my little sister. If I've done anything that led you on, I'm sorry." In that instant, all the shocked or mocking gazes seemed to shatter into thousands of sharp blades, each stabbing into my heart, a silent kind of violence that hurt beyond measure. I forced a smile, unsure how to salvage the absurdity of the situation. What I thought would be a natural progression of mutual affection turned out to be my own humiliating one-sided fantasy. Patricia then took the stage, moving to stand at Horace's side. She crossed her arms and gave me a disdainful look, saying, "Lillian, I warned you, didn't I? Horace doesn't like you. It was you who insisted on making a fool of yourself." Horace turned to argue with her, accusing her of acting without regard for others, forgetting entirely that I was still trapped in that mortifying moment. Chapter 4. President. Patricia is here. Justin's calm voice echoed through the quiet, spacious office, startling both of them from their memories. "Let her wait outside first," Horace replied, expressionless, then turned and walked into the lounge. In that lounge was a massive walk-in closet full of clothes of various styles, all meticulously arranged by me, so he'd always have something ready for any situation. And now, he was carefully selecting from that dazzling array for a date with another woman. How laughable. I did so much but could never unlock his heart. In the end, I practically handed another woman her wedding gown. Such an absurd waste. How painfully ironic. Patricia, who was supposed to wait outside, entered the office without permission and picked up the photo on the desk. When Horace came out and saw her doing that, he flew into a rage. "Who said you could touch my things?" His sudden anger caught everyone off guard. Patricia froze for a second, then snapped back, demanding, "Oh, really, Horace? You're about to marry me, yet you're hiding another woman's photo? What is that supposed to mean? Another woman's photo?" So, it wasn't Patricia after all. Hearing that, I practically doubled over with laughter, clutching my stomach. So Horace was playing around behind Patricia's back? Well, fine. Let her taste the same bitterness I once felt. The two of them started arguing fiercely, and it ended on a sour note. Before long, the spacious office lay in shambles, with only Horace left on his own, alone and desolate. He bent down to pick up the photograph from the floor. Curious, I leaned closer, wanting to see the woman Horace was keeping hidden even from Patricia, but he deliberately covered the photo with his hand, protecting it so tightly I couldn't see a thing. Disappointed, I was about to give up when I realized, why should a dead person care about the affairs of the living? Besides, I was going to disappear soon. Just then, the office phone rang, breaking the silence. Horace glanced at the old landline on his desk, the corners of his lips curling slightly. He let it ring a few more times, waiting until it was nearly about to stop before lazily picking up. "Hello?" On the other end came the butler's calm, numb voice. "Sir, how shall we arrange Miss Lillian's funeral?" Horace frowned, not hearing the voice he'd apparently been hoping for. Irritated, he barked, "Is Lillian still faking her death? Tell her this cheap trick won't fool me. I'm not canceling my wedding." The other end of the line stayed silent for a long time, so long that Horace nearly thought the call had ended, before the butler finally spoke again. His voice weighted with grief. "Sir, Miss Lillian has been dead for a whole day now. Then drag her out and burn her." The butler asked quietly, "Would you like to come see her one last time?" "No need," Horace answered coldly. "And in the future, don't bother me with trivial matters like this." With that, he hung up. I heard everything loud and clear from my spot by his side, and couldn't help but give a bitter smile. Trivial matters? So in his eyes, my life and death were that insignificant. I never imagined my final send-off would be arranged so perfunctorily. Just drag me out and burn me. It was both maddening and darkly comical. Truly fitting for the man I once loved, how decisive he could be. Chapter 5. Evening came. Patricia, who had disappeared for the entire day, returned. She'd had her hair styled, wore exquisite makeup, and donned a beautiful dress. She invited Horace to the upscale restaurant downstairs for a candlelit dinner. Beneath the bright crystal chandeliers, the diamond earrings on Patricia's earlobes sparkled brilliantly. She tilted her head, brushing back a few strands of hair, revealing her graceful neck. A proud smile touched her lips. Horace, I'll forgive you for what happened today, but before we get married, you need to clear out anything and everything related to that other woman. Her tone was confident and flamboyant, more of a directive than a request, almost an order. Then, with an air of finality, she elegantly resumed cutting her steak, ignoring Horace completely. She'd always been so certain of herself, treating everything casually. It reminded me of 3 months ago, on Horace's birthday. I had just presented him with a tailor-made suit. He put it on and showed it off to all our friends. My Lily is amazing. Our mutual friends teased him, saying, "Wow, Lily's got real talent. Horace, you're lucky to be the one wearing her custom designs." Everyone was praising me, except Patricia, who sat in the shadows nursing a dark expression. She downed her wine in one gulp, then spoke up. "Horace, why don't we get married?" In an instant, the lively atmosphere froze. All eyes flickered between the three of us. Patricia shot me a contemptuous glance, then continued, with the poise of a victor. "I'm tired of all this. I want a home of my own. Will you give me that?" At that moment, the blood in my veins ran cold. I turned stiffly to Horace. I could see the unmistakable spark of joy in his dark eyes. I already knew his answer, yet still held out a faint hope he would refuse her. But fate has never taken my side. Just like that, they decided to marry. Now, seeing something so similar unfold left me strangely calm. I couldn't care less about the other woman Patricia was talking about. Horace agreed. They reconciled. They finished their meal happily, then returned hand in hand to their matrimonial home. The moment the door swung open, Patricia eagerly wrapped herself around Horace's neck. Kissing him messily, she bit softly at his Adam's apple and asked in a low voice, "Horace, tell me, between Lillian and me, who's better in bed?" He was already swept up in desire, reaching for the hem of her dress, but the mention of my name abruptly killed his mood. He pushed Patricia aside without expression, then walked alone to the balcony and lit a cigarette between his fingers. A faint glow winked in the cold wind. Horace leaned against the railing, gazing out at the distant skyline with all its glittering neon. Who knows what thoughts weighed on his mind? Patricia had always been proud, used to having throngs of men wrapped around her finger. Now, she was turned down the moment she tried to lower herself for Horace. So naturally she was upset. After her shower, she emerged wearing one of Horace's white shirts, showing off her long, pale legs. She asked, clearly displeased, "You get so wound up when you hear Lillian's name. Don't tell me you're still thinking about her?" Horace extinguished his cigarette and tossed it into the trash. Irritated, he explained, "How many times do I have to say it? She's my sister." "Sister?" Patricia scoffed. "If she's just a sister, would you really let her follow you around day and night? And what was I supposed to do? Lillian lost her parents. She has no one else in this world but me." Surprisingly, Patricia's anger cooled a little. She sneered, "I hate people who pretend to be brother and sister while carrying on all kinds of scandalous affairs. Lillian knew you were marrying me, but still clung to you shamelessly. She might as well be dead. It'd spare everyone the embarrassment." Hearing them argue, I couldn't help laughing. Patricia really could predict the future. I truly am dead. No one will ever have to be bothered by me again. But Horace seemed unwilling to hear such words. He snapped, "Shut up." Patricia felt even more wronged. She yelled back, "You're still defending her. Horace, you don't love me at all." With that, she slammed the door and stormed out. Silence descended once more, leaving Horace alone in the living room, chain-smoking through half the night. The floor was littered with cigarette butts. Seeing the way he was inhaling them, I was honestly afraid he might choke to death. Once he'd finished the pack, he wandered around in his slippers, presumably looking for more. Instead, his hand landed on his phone atop the coffee table. The screen lit up, the notification bar showing a string of missed calls and unread emails, none from me. Though, not a single one. Horace frowned and opened our chat window. Lillian, if you don't stop causing trouble, I'm going to marry Patricia the day after tomorrow. Seeing that message he'd sent me, I felt a wave of absurdity wash over me. What did he mean by that? If I showed up, would he cancel the wedding? Yet before I died, I'd already asked him, do you really have to marry Patricia? Horace. Oh Horace, you held my very life in your hands. Yet you wouldn't give me even the faintest chance to survive. If you remained single forever, at least I would have stayed alive without you. But once you decided to marry, the system declared my mission a failure, and a failure has no right to live in this world. As usual, his message disappeared into the void without any reply. Bang! Horace threw his phone against the wall with a forceful fling, shattering it instantly. That phone was the one I had given him, my little attempt at having matching devices. Well, let it shatter. Let it shatter. I'm already dead. It's best if every last bond between Horace and me is severed. Chapter 6. The next day, Horace didn't go to work as usual. Justin came looking for him. President, the tulips you ordered for Miss Song have arrived. Shall we deliver them? Send them. Horace replied curtly. He still believed, if Lillian wants to keep pretending she's dead, then these tulips will surely draw her out of hiding. I found it amusing just how much of a simp was I before, that Horace genuinely thought sending me a truckload of flowers would have me rushing back into his arms. Plus, he'd forgotten I was allergic to tulips. Horace, you really never cared enough to remember the simplest details. Full of confidence, he personally drove the truck of tulips back to Rose Garden and had the flowers transplanted into the backyard. Hearing the commotion outside, the butler stepped out. Horace, beaming, waved her over. Where's Lillian? Tell her to come out. The butler's eyelids twitched slightly, her voice numb and lifeless as she repeated, Sir, Miss Lillian has already passed away. Horace's face darkened at once, lips curving downward in disgust. I tolerated your so-called joke the first 2 times, but now it's getting old. Indeed. Once Horace had decided to marry Patricia, we'd fought constantly. Near the end, our relationship was almost beyond repair. I lived every day in fear and panic. The moment I woke up, I'd ask him over and over, are you really going to marry Patricia? Each time, he answered, yes. In the early days, he just brushed it off as me throwing a childish tantrum. But when I asked too many times, he grew impatient and warned, Lillian, if you keep this up, you can get out of my life. I'd break out in a cold sweat, my body trembling. All the while, the system bombarded me with urgent warnings in my head. There are 20 days left to capture the male lead's heart. Failure will result in termination. Please complete the mission promptly. This big, wide world, I wasn't ready to leave it. Desperate, I begged him, what if your marriage means I'll die? Horace, maybe we have no chance at all. But could you just not marry anyone? It was ridiculous even in my own eyes. Of course he wouldn't agree. He immediately blocked me. Only when Patricia insisted on having me as her bridesmaid did he finally unblock my number. The butler, still wearing that blank expression, curled her lips in mockery and lied. Yes, Miss Lillian isn't dead. She traveled somewhere far away. Hearing that answer, Horace's face finally lit with a hint of a smile. Fine, tell her to hurry back. I'll allow her to attend my wedding. Ha ha ha. I nearly doubled over laughing when I heard that. What does he think his wedding is? Am I supposed to be overwhelmed with gratitude just because he allows me to be there? How absurd. The butler nodded slowly. I will. I promise I'll bring Miss Lillian along. Satisfied, Horace left in good spirits. Yesterday, he'd angrily told the butler to drag my corpse out and burn it, so I was curious whether that had actually happened. I tried drifting back into the villa, but some inexplicable force yanked me away. compelling me to follow Horace again. Why? Why am I still bound to him even after death? Is that my only purpose in this world? I felt a wave of sadness for myself. In this life, I never truly lived for my own sake. I pinned my entire existence on that one boy, only to lose him in the relentless flow of time. Chapter 7. On the third day after my death, Horace's wedding took place. He never returned to the villa to see me again. Dressed in a white suit, he stood beside Patricia, who wore a lavish bridal gown, a real pair of heaven-made newlyweds, at least on the surface. Yet at his own wedding, Horace seemed absent-minded, constantly glancing toward the entrance. While exchanging rings with Patricia, his hand missed. The ring slipped to the floor. Irritated, Patricia hissed under her breath, "Horace!" To everyone's astonishment, Horace then announced a pause to the ceremony. The crowd broke into uproar. All the frustrations built up over these past days finally erupted. Patricia ripped off her veil and demanded furiously, "What is the meaning of this?" Horace spoke quietly, "She hasn't come yet." Who? Who hasn't come yet? I didn't immediately understand, but Patricia guessed right away. "You're waiting for Lillian?" Horace's gaze was intense as he locked eyes with Patricia and spoke in a gentle, almost coaxing tone. "Patricia, just wait a bit longer. Our wedding wouldn't be complete without Lillian." His expression was tinged with an unwavering obsession. At a glance, he looked like a madman. Patricia's composure shattered at last. She burst into tears, crying out, "I'm the one marrying you, not Lillian." "Horace, do you even love me?" Ignoring her outburst, Horace kept waiting for me. Right then, Justin strode in quickly. "President, Miss Song has arrived." Relief washed over Horace's face, then morphed into anger. So she finally decided to show up after hiding all this time. Justin, for his part, looked horribly uneasy, but Horace didn't notice. He left his distraught bride behind and marched outside the hotel. "Lillian, you," he began, voice grim, likely ready to scold me, but the words died in his throat when he saw what awaited him. I stood there in shock, too. In a cool, unwavering tone, the butler spoke, "Sir, I've brought Miss Lillian to attend your wedding. Once it's over, we'll be heading straight to the crematorium." My corpse lay in a coffin of ice, transported by car. The butler actually brought my body to Horace's wedding? Now that was a dramatic move, a moment people would never forget. I nearly laughed myself hoarse. Had I still been alive, I might have given the butler a standing ovation. Horace's rage froze on his face, twisting it with disbelief. It took him a long moment to process what he was seeing. Casting a glance at the hearse parked on the roadside, he let out a cold laugh. "So she went all in with the performance this time?" The butler said icily, "Miss Lillian is right there. Won't you at least come and see for yourself?" His tone dripped with sarcasm. Horace stared blankly for a few seconds before moving toward the hearse, but his steps were unnaturally heavy, like each footfall exhausted all his strength. Slowly, almost dragging himself, he reached the coffin. Inside lay my body, still and cold, not exactly peaceful. After all, my soul had been violently ripped out before death, and I'd suffered terribly in my final moments. The instant Horace looked upon my face, it was as if he'd been struck. His knees buckled, and he collapsed. "President!" Justin rushed to help him up. Horace jerked away from Justin's grip, pointing a trembling finger at the coffin. Justin, look again. Are you sure it's her?" "Yes, President. It's Miss Song," Justin confirmed. The butler added, "She's been dead for 3 days now." Horace's head snapped up, suddenly aware of the damp chill on his cheeks. He wiped at his face, tears. He demanded, "Then why are you only telling me now?" Expressionless, the butler answered, "I've been telling you. You just insisted Miss Song was faking it. You wouldn't even bother going upstairs to check for yourself." At last, Horace began to understand. He'd assumed it was yet another childish trick of mine to force him to call off the wedding, never considering the possibility it might be true. Because, in the past, I had indeed run away, gone missing, pulling every desperate tactic I could. Patricia had told him, "Lillian is being ridiculous. You've made it clear you only see her as a sister. Yet she won't leave you alone. She uses these childish methods to threaten you. Horace, don't let her fool you. And he listened. He chose not to believe me anymore. Sir, I'll be taking Miss Lillian's body to the crematorium now, the butler stated, then climbed into the driver's seat. Starting the hearse, Horace stood, stunned for a second, before clutching Justin's arm and ordering, "Start the car, follow them." In no time, Horace and Justin were racing down the highway in a luxury car worth millions, chasing after a hearse. I could only stare, dumbfounded, at the bizarre sight and think, Horace, this is beyond absurd. I guess I finally got to be the leading lady he's chasing after, except this time I'm a corpse. Chapter 8. I drifted to the crematorium, watching myself, once a living person, reduced by raging flames to a heap of strange, hideous ash, then packed into a narrow, pitch-black box. I felt a sudden lightness in my soul. The mysterious power that had bound me vanished. I supposed it was finally time for me to depart. When the staff emerged carrying my urn, Horace instinctively reached for it, only for the butler to snatch it away first. "Sir, Miss Lillian wouldn't want to leave with you." Horace glared at the butler, his fingers clenching and unclenching, until he could no longer suppress the overwhelming collapse and despair that flooded his heart. "Lillian has no one left in this world but me. She can only come with me." Like a madman, he tried to wrest the urn from the butler's grasp. In the scuffle, the urn flew out of their hands. Justin sprang forward, eyes wide, catching it midair before rolling across the ground with it in his arms. We both breathed a sigh of relief. My ashes hadn't spilled everywhere. I didn't want to be scattered to the winds through force. Seeing I was intact, Horace ordered Justin, "Give Lily back to me. I'm taking her home, our true home." To my ears, his words were utterly ironic. "Horace, that is your home, not mine." Justin hesitated, glancing uncertainly between me and the butler, unable to decide. At last, the butler spoke. "Miss Lillian once told me that if she died, she wanted her ashes scattered at sea. She didn't want to remain in a world that caused her so much pain." Thank goodness, someone still remembered what I'd said. Over these past 3 months, Horace had been preoccupied with preparing for his wedding to Patricia. He hadn't spared a moment to ask about my plans. Meanwhile, the system's relentless countdown nearly drove me insane. In the end, I couldn't tell anymore if I was desperately pursuing Horace just to stay alive, or because I truly loved him. Most of it felt beyond my control. From the moment Patricia appeared, everything spiraled to extremes. Many times, I tried but failed to rein myself in. When I was drunk, I confided in the butler, "I'm not from this world. In my previous life, I died a terrible death, captured by traitors, whipped with lashes soaked in salt water until my flesh was ripped to shreds. They tried countless brutal tortures on me. The shadow of that death was too great. While my soul drifted through the void, something called the system bound itself to me. It said it could give me another chance at life, so long as I completed the assigned mission. Then, I'd get to live out this life in peace." What a tempting offer. I accepted without a second thought. And the person I had to pursue? It was the same man I refused to betray in my previous life. Even on the brink of death, Horace. In that past life, I'd been just a simple fisherwoman, drifting from place to place until finally I married you while you schemed for your grand ambitions. Carrying your child, I was captured and tortured by your enemies, yet never revealed your whereabouts. But in both lifetimes, you failed me. It was all so unfair. When did she say that? Horace's face had gone pale. He asked in a rush. The butler met his gaze, each word a sharp thrust. "That night you and Patricia went out and didn't come back. Miss Lillian told me herself, your wedding day would be the day she died." The next moment, that formidable butler transformed into a slender, gentle beauty, holding an oil paper umbrella. She cast a glance at the urn in Justin's arms and pointed right where I stood. Her voice was quiet, almost hypnotic. "Lillian is standing over there. Tell me, in her presence, do you love her or not?" Horace froze for a heartbeat, then nodded repeatedly, terrified that a second's delay might mean I wouldn't hear him. I do love Lily. I love her." His voice dwindled to a whisper, choked with despair and pain. It was the confession I had chased after so desperately. Yet now that I finally heard it, I felt nothing at all, not even relief, just revulsion. Yes, truly revolting. The beauty sighed softly. Too bad you realized it far too late. She walked over to Horace, her palm glowing blue as she swept it across his forehead, instantly sharpening his awareness. And the information that flooded Horace's mind spread into my own. In our previous life, he seized power, took the throne, and married a noble's daughter to consolidate his rule. I, the wife of his humble past, was left behind, entirely forgotten, unmentioned even in official histories. It was me, my raging resentment summoned this mysterious woman. She offered me a challenge in this lifetime, promising to grant me immortality afterward, so I could travel to different worlds as a task completer. I refused. I only wanted to be reunited with my husband. She gave a low sigh. What if your husband is someone who repays kindness with betrayal? I didn't believe her, so I paid a devastating price in exchange for this new life. And now, I am no different from a mermaid in a fairy tale who traded her tail for human legs. Every step was like walking on knives. Agony beyond measure. Only at the end do I regret it all. In this moment, all I want is to return to my own sea. Chapter 9. Memories from 2 lifetimes surged into Horace's mind at once, overwhelming him. He clutched his head in agony, calling out my name. Lily. I was wrong. I was wrong. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. In the past life, it was Patricia. She told me that you thought I had no future, so you ran off with someone else. I figured letting you go was the best thing I could do for you. I never dreamed it would be like this. All you ever did was assume, always assuming. Why didn't you ever try to find out the truth? My rage swelled. In my fury, my soul form momentarily gained substance and became visible. The moment Horace saw me, unbridled joy flashed across his face. He rushed toward me, attempting to embrace me, but his arms passed right through. He stood there, stunned, staring at his empty hands. The beauty spared him a glance devoid of sympathy, then turned to me and said, Lillian, you've failed in your pursuit of Horace. Under our wager, your soul will be completely destroyed, no more next life. Do you have any objection? I accept it. I lowered my head. Everything that had happened was the natural consequence of my choices. Upon hearing that, Horace let out a series of desperate cries. Lillian, I love you. I really do love you. I was deceived. I was just blinded. I thought you'd never leave me. No matter how loudly he roared, it made no difference. Before his eyes, my soul grew fainter, until it finally vanished altogether. The beauty took hold of my urn and disappeared as well. Horace collapsed to the ground in utter despair, his eyes dull and lifeless. All he could do was mutter over and over, Lillian, I really do love you. I love you. Justin, unable to bear watching any longer, tried to pull him up. President, enough. Miss Song can't hear you now. Everything he had just witnessed was beyond his comprehension. Still, some part of Justin felt Horace deserved every bit of this outcome. A small surge of grim satisfaction rose in him, though he feared losing his job if he dared say it aloud. Chapter 10. Diana brought me to a virtual space. A huge transparent screen appeared in front of us, showing the crematorium scene. Horace had lost his mind. He refused to accept my death, barged back in, and tried to force the staff to burn him. 2. Lily wants to go to the sea, so I'm going with her. The staff watched him with terrified eyes and called the police. Diagnosed with mental instability, Horace was hauled off to a psychiatric hospital. There, he was an outlier, stabbing himself over and over with a knife every day, never holding back. Even though the blood spilled everywhere, he simply could not die. Every morning he woke, the wounds were all healed. He laughed deliriously. Lily, just how much do you hate me, that you won't even let me die? Seeing him so deranged, I turned to Diana in alarm. Will he really end up insane? No, Diana replied. He's the only favored soul in this world. Heaven's way won't allow him to die. He'll remain fully aware and endure the torment of backlash. Patricia heard what happened and managed to get him out of the hospital, then took him home. Seeing Horace so dejected, she yelled at him. Isn't it just Lillian? If she's dead, she's dead. Horace, are you really going to abandon your entire company for a dead woman? Don't you realize how many people stand to lose their jobs if you skip work for a single day? She certainly sounded righteous and heroic. It was all too much like the previous lifetime. When Horace was devastated after hearing I'd gone missing, she'd made up the lie that I'd run off with another man. He grieved for 3 days, then finally rallied, seizing the capital and fulfilling his grand ambitions. Now, the scene was repeating itself. A dark fury flared in Horace's eyes. He raised a knife while Patricia wasn't looking and stabbed her viciously. Patricia had probably intended to lecture him further. She never saw it coming. She must have died without ever understanding how it happened. Such an absurdly twisted turn of events. I tore my gaze from the screen, not wanting to watch any more of that awful scene. Diana understood. Lifting a hand to shut off the display, she said, rather than getting lost in the tides of love and hate, why not do something meaningful? Lillian, there are so many women in this world trapped in the same misery you once were. Go save them. Save them? I can't even save myself. Diana smiled faintly. How do you know unless you try? Fine, I'll try. I can't rescue myself, so I'll do my best to become someone else's salvation. Chapter 11. Horace had committed murder, but because he was ruled mentally ill, he couldn't be sentenced and was sent back to the psychiatric hospital. All he had left was one photograph of me, which he clutched as he muttered endlessly. Lily. Lily. He kept insisting he loved me, that he had simply been blinded, deluded. Too bad, it's all just an excuse. If your love for me had been firm enough, would it really have taken my death to wake you up? Horace, may we never meet again for all eternity.